Live, and we're gonna wait just about 5 minutes before we get going here. We are just getting the links out to everybody. Gonna let the room fill up a little bit before we actually get going. Coach Ryan Swingle, how we doing?
Doing great.
What's it like transitioning from player to coach? I did it many moons ago, but I want to know now, with especially with the new innovations to offense that are happening now, and everything that you've kind of gone through since coming from BW.
It's interesting just like having new perspectives, I guess, and then also working with and talking to people with maybe older or different perspectives and kind of just blending those two together. Because I think that you have your ideas that you see work and you study, and you might not actually have put them into use yet and see if they work, but you see them work at other places. That it's like you have all of these ideas, and then it's just like, what do you do with them, and how do you best like implement them without stepping on toes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it, and so far it's been good. I'm still looking at options.
Yeah.
I've been helping out at my old high school here and there, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's the best place to get started too. I think everyone should coach at least some sort of youth first to understand.
Yeah.
If you want to be a youth coach or not. But if you're getting in the high school level to start, it's definitely understand the younger kids and understand what makes them tick. I think one of the greatest things I ever learned was that every kid doesn't tick the same way, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If you scream at a kid, sometimes he'll go hide. If you coddle a kid too much, sometimes you won't get the most out of him either. So it's finding that happy balance between getting the most out of your player and then making sure that they're being efficient with what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah, and even working at my high school, they're transitioning to a 7th through 12th grade staff. So even though there might not be contact, obviously not allowed to have contact between a 7th grader and a senior in high school, you're still having that coaching staff impacting all the kids as opposed to having the separate middle school practices. So it's definitely interesting seeing that wide range of, and going from playing in college and working with the Browns last year, we're watching film where it's like guys do things at such a high level. And even though it might not be perfect, they're still playing at a very high level comparatively to kids that can't even get in the stance or are coming off the ball and striking with 1 foot forward and lunging. And it's just like interesting seeing kids where you haven't dealt with kids like that since I've been in 7th grade, obviously.
Yeah.
Looking at that skill set and that base foundation being where it is comparatively to what I've been used to, it's definitely interesting seeing that.
Yeah, and you think everything that we do here, what we do isn't the perfect way to do it. And that's what we're trying to do with Victory too, is give you the best information to be able to make the best decisions that you can for your program, right? We sent out that template the other day, that practice template, right? And it wasn't to say like, this is how you should run your practices. It's like, hey, here's a template where
here's an idea. Exactly.
And that's
you adapt it to how you want it.
And that's what coaching is, right? Essentially stealing something from every coach that you possibly can and put it all together to make it fit for your system.
Right. So, and even like the things, like I remember we were talking the other day, just like about, what was it? Oh, the jet motion off of, out of like stack that we were looking at.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like, even though like, I was like, oh, you're like, where'd you get that from? It's like, I don't know, but I'm sure someone's done it before, even though it's like, oh, you might think that you're the first person to think of it. Chances are it's like, you're just recycling and putting your own spin on it. And even though it might not be the exact same way that Ohio State runs inside zone or this school runs inside zone or how Chip Kelly runs his mesh concept, you're still taking that general idea from it and adapting it to fit your needs and your vision.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and that's all coaching is making sure it fits your vision, but also fits your system too with the kids that you have.
Right.
And to make sure, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. We're going to get started here just about 36 seconds. Like I said, we're just letting the room fill up a little bit before we get going. Tonight, we're going to be talking about implementing cadences into your offense. And it's going to be pretty high level what we're talking about, but we want to make sure that once again, we give you the variety and the tool set to maybe alter your cadence this season to get the most out of the pre-snap communication. So like I said, just in about 15 seconds, we're going to get going. Spring ball, Cleveland, is it legal or no?
In high school level,
Yeah, at the high school level.
you get 10 helmeted practices after June 1st, but there's not technically legal during like the school year. So
Something's better
some
than nothing, though. Yeah.
a lot of teams will bend the rules
Sure,
and
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
with the coaches. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously not a touchy subject for some people, but it happens everywhere. So
No, of course, it does. But
especially with 7-on-7, I mean, who's to stop a kid from a group of kids from going on the field? And then, it just so happens that, there's the coach in the stand and there's
just hanging out, right?
Right, exactly. Even though you might not be giving on-field instruction, you do it in a way that you try to abide by the black and white rules, but bend it into that gray area.
Oh, it's good that you guys have spring ball though, just to get the kids out there running around doing something. Even if it's
The 10 camp days are definitely very beneficial, and they started doing that when I was in high school, like a few years prior to when I got into high school was when that all started, and they still do the 10 helmeted days, which a lot of teams will go to team camps and stuff like that and take advantage of that, then do 7-on-7s, then also just individual install stuff where you can kind of have that initial install of the playbook and then re-review it and reinstall it again once the actual 2-a-day camp hits.
Cool. Makes sense.
But I don't even think they do 2 days anymore in Ohio now.
Yeah, no, they don't. Most places they don't.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna get going here. So we have, as mentioned, we are talking about cadences and how to implement them into your offense. We are actually really excited to announce that we have officially signed our first sponsor to the live clinic. As you can see in the corner there, Team Builder is now our official sponsor for the clinic. For those who don't know what Team Builder is, they provide strength and conditioning software to more than 500 high schools, programs across the nation, as well as the NFL too. So whether you write your own programs, you have a full-time strength coach, or you need programs, Team Builder can help you make your weight room more efficient, more accountable, smarter, and it helps you measure your players' success as well. So right now, check out Team Builder. They're offering a 10-week spread offense tempo training program. And if you use the promo code VICTORY, you can get a 14-day free trial. So go check those guys out. Team Builder, official Victory clinic and podcast sponsor. So shout out to those guys as well. Now let's dig into the live clinic presentation here. We're going to be talking about cadences and ways that we can implement them into our offenses here. Okay. So things to include into our cadences. And this is just a rundown that me and Ryan came up with, and we just threw those down. Ryan, if anything else comes to the top of your head, feel free to talk about it. Yeah, I just want to go one by one here. So we talk about our snap count, right? And it could be a filler. And I think this is the case for probably 80%, maybe even higher that of high school Pop Warner programs. I wouldn't say most colleges, but probably high school and Pop Warner, where you're just saying green 90 set hut just for the sake of saying green 90 set hut.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no actual meaning or play call behind it. It's just, these are the words we're going to say. We're going to do color number, set go.
Exactly. And then you go on 2 just to throw them off, or you go on first down just to throw them off. And like I said, I think that's the case for most of the offenses out there. Some other ways that we found in our research of why coaches or what they've used in their cadence as well is to talk about the down defensive lineman. And I think this is common mostly in wing T systems too, where they say either odd, or even before the snap to help the line identify the front that's across from the offensive lineman. The second one's the big one, the audibles, right? And Ryan, I'll let you talk a little bit about this. You were talking about your offense that you ran and how you can actually build the audibles right into the play call.
Yeah, so different ways just of incorporating like the play call itself. A lot of teams with like the popularity of hand signals nowadays, the offensive line isn't looking over to the sideline and getting those hand signals. So part of the cadence will be incorporating either, depending on how you communicate the play call, whether it be a word, numbers, whatever the offensive line needs to know. Quarterback will relay that to the offensive line before the snap of the ball. Then also off of that is, like you talked about with the whole audible thing, being able to set the line down and change the play at the line of scrimmage with that cadence as well is definitely a added advantage of using cadence in your play calling.
Yeah, and I've even seen as well where teams that are under center, they'll go, red 98, will be their normal cadence. But then if they go blue 26, blue 20, it's just that check at the line of scrimmage could mean, hey, I'm throwing a fade to my outside receiver or giving him a choice route on the outside as well. So, and we're going to get into the verbal stuff going down the slide presentation here, but that's just a different way that audibles and line checks, they play in together. And then just dummy calls as well. Being able to say, say hit, and then checking, as you mentioned, to the sideline or, seeing if we get any blitzes from the defense, which we'll go over as well.
Yeah. And then with that too, also, as far as going off the under center stuff with like the audible, a lot of teams will do, especially in like the run game, being able to flip the play. So if it's a zone to the right and quarterback gets at the line and he can use a word, like you said, possibly if you go on red is your base cadence, then blue, that would be the indicator to flip the call, as well as also killing the play at the line of scrimmage, especially in the NFL with the headset being available. Though a lot of teams will call 2 plays in the huddle. And then if the quarterback doesn't like the look to the first play, he can kill it. And that will signify to the whole offense that switch the play to the second play called.
Yeah, and that's a good transition here too, because as we talk about verbal cadences, and the most popular form is, and I know for people who watch football on Sundays, Cam Newton's a big proponent of this, right? Where it's like white 80 said hi, and just having that tempo and that cadence. And this is huge for especially offensive linemen as well. Having an offensive lineman be on the same page and taking the same footwork steps together. Where it's white 80 said hit and they're going, or using that dummy count like we mentioned before.
It's also interesting when you get a quarterback change during the game as well, just seeing how the offensive line, the timing of the play call. You see a veteran quarterback that's been there for at the college level. It's been with the same offensive line for 3 years. Then you have a guy that comes in middle of the game that might not be used to running with that first group all the time, and you have some communication issues and that timing issues where you have this guy that you've had with that same rhythm in his cadence for the last 3 years, and you get a guy that, even though it might be the same cadence, it's still that slight little difference in the way that he inflects his voice or the rhythm that he calls the play out can throw guys off when you're used to such a rhythmic cadence.
Yeah. Now, how difficult is that? Because we were talking about this before we went live, and Brian, our other co-founder here, was on talking about the cadences and how when a backup quarterback does come in, it really does throw you off. So I want you to talk about a little bit about that, and how can a high school team prepare for that, or is it just practicing maybe 3 quarterbacks in a room at the same time and making sure that they are on the same tone, the same rhythm, and
right,
sure that the balls come at the same time?
So from my most recent experience, we used a clap, and then the center would say go. So for us, it was more of on the center to have that timing it up of right when the clap would happen to say go. But I've also been in offenses where the quarterback is verbally using the cadence. So I think it's just important to have consistency, whether it be with the center or the quarterback, having that first through third or fourth string center, having that same time frame when they're going to say go, or the quarterback having that same format and same way of doing it across the board, whether you're the first string quarterback or the third string quarterback, trying to get it uniform as possible. So if you do have to go into a game situation where you're making a quarterback change or you're making a center change, it's seamless as possible. Obviously, not everyone's the same, and even just like the voice inflection might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, you want to have it as streamlined as possible.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is the cons of a verbal, right? And I want to talk a little bit about, because pretty much every team uses a verbal, right? Or if you are just a strictly hand signal team, you may do that as well. But again, throwing numbers around, probably about 90% of teams run some sort of verbal cadence. Let's talk about the cons of a verbal cadence. The first one that comes off the top of my head is if you have a loud crowd, you may not be able to hear it. Is there anything else that jumps out to you?
I mean, just sort of tipping the defense, I guess, because I guess with the one thing, that especially when I've used the clap my first 2 years of college, just the ability to undress the defense with your hands I feel like putting that much pressure to go on 2 all the time with the offensive line with a verbal cadence to undress the defense isn't something that at most levels, I mean, obviously when you're a pro, you would expect continuity and consistent performance and attention to detail. But let's be realistic, when you're at the high school level, not every guy is going to have that same capability of being disciplined enough to go on 2 regularly to undress the defense with the clap.
Yep.
if everyone is just looking at the ball as opposed to listening for the cadence, and the quarterback can fake clap, do it a couple times, I think it allows for the defense to be undressed better. So I think that's one of the drawbacks of doing a verbal cadence,
Yep.
is having to go on to a lot to undress the defense. And when you're doing it at multiple levels, it can be kind of tricky.
Yeah, sure. All right, the next one we have here is the leg lift and the hand motion. I think these next 2 or 3, we should say, and you mentioned the clap. We'll get to that, but I think the leg lift and the hand motion are starting to become more popular. And you see it where, whether it's Michigan, the Big House, or Ohio State, these big time college programs that have these massive crowds that sometimes verbal doesn't travel well. So you go to the leg lift or the hand motion, and the QB uses his body movement to call for the ball. And we see this a lot in the NFL too, where the guard is tapping the center and letting him know, as opposed to him sitting there looking between his legs the whole time, because he needs to check for blitzes. He needs to check for any pressure coming up, or any stunts that they may anticipate as well. So good. I know you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. With working with the Browns the last year, it's interesting to see how they even game plan for road and away games as far as their practice plan. So whenever we would be at home, our defense would have crowd noise pumped into the facility during our team periods and all that. And when we were on the road that week, we would go to a leg lift or the silent count. And I know a lot of teams do this, where during that week of practice, you're practicing during every play, you got the volume cranked up full go, and just focusing on getting that continuity and getting that consistency with being able to go on a silent count to combat that crowd noise. And even at the high school level nowadays, with programs growing as big as they are, and stadiums being what they are, a lot of the teams down in Texas having these multi-million-dollar stadiums, and teams all over now having these such huge stadiums that allow for such a high capacity crowd, it's really beneficial to be able to use that silent count in order to combat those crowds, as opposed to having verbal where you have to be screaming and it's so hard to communicate between the quarterback and the rest of the team as to what he needs done, as opposed to just having that leg lift. There's also some drawbacks, obviously, like we said, having the center, depending on how you do it, whether it's the guard or the center, it's still important for those offensive linemen to be able to get the whole big picture of the defense, as opposed to, oh, this is my guy, or when you can see how safety rotation might affect a blitz, or how different alignments and different tendencies that they're going to bring into that game plan each week can affect you. It's definitely an added bonus to be able to have everyone just have their eyes forward. But there's different ways I think you can adjust to that.
Yeah. And I want to hold off on the cons just a little bit, because I still want to talk about the pros. And I think one of the best pros of having the leg lift or the hand motion, where the quarterback is, dipping it between his legs, or he's using his front leg to lift up and down. I love the center head movement when he looks down, looks back up, because that can be used as the game progresses too. And we'll talk about how the clap can undress defense. I think this is a great way to undress the defense as well. And when we say undress the defense, we mean it's a way to see if the defense is bringing any blitz with any pressure when they're anticipating the snap count. You see a lot too with the quarterback bringing his head down, especially if he's getting tapped by the guard and puts his head down, brings it back up. It gives that anticipation that something's coming, especially if you do it from a consistent basis.
And then we had the talk about your snap and rolling coverages. A lot of teams will time that up with your concept of doing the snap coverage. Around the snap of the ball, you're going to roll. And obviously, if you can get the defense to tip that as a pre-snap, where the quarterback can say, all right, they weren't too high, but now they're rolling to one high. You have that 2-second period to be like, all right, this is where I need to go in my progression based off of one high versus two high. I think being able to undress the defense with the silent count, with the hand movement and the leg lift, is really beneficial in that sense.
Yeah, and we were talking the other day, and it still baffles me, like how every team doesn't undress the defense, especially if you're playing a defense that blitzes a ton. Have this leg lift, or have the hand motion, or we're going to talk about the clap too. Have it built in your system, because it's tough to tell a young kid to read a defense, but then if you know what's coming at you, you can dissect it a hell of a lot easier. I think the leg lift and the hand motion, even if you want to get your center involved too. I've seen offenses too where it's, hey, we're going on a leg lift. Okay, if we call, Boise, we're going on a verbal call. So you can build in a verbal call and a leg lift call into your offense, but it's just a way to undress the defense and to give your offensive line especially a better chance to block what's coming at them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people will say, oh, what about when the quarterback needs the ball right now? Well, there's ways that with like the guard tapping, a lot of times if like the quarterback gives whatever their indicator is for I need the ball right now, the guard will just have his hand out in front and start waving it, as opposed to just like the normal tap is to tell the center like, hey, we have either like a jet motion that's dependent on it, or the play clock's running down, the quarterback needs the ball right now. And a lot of people that are haters, in a sense, I guess, for lack of a better term, on the silent count or the leg lift or the hand motion. That's a way to kind of combat that.
Yep, that's good. Yeah, because I think that was one of the cons. I think that was one of the things that came to mind initially when we started doing this was like, okay, what if I need the ball right now? I need my guard to, and it is a way to have a built-in signal where your guard is maybe tapping his leg or waving his hand.
Right, where he has out in front. There's a good, if anyone out there is a fan of detail with Peyton Manning, the Jared Goff episode, they do a lot with the cadence and the leg lift and how the Rams use that to and how they progress through the game to be able to use it to their advantage, to be able to get the defense to tip their hand and keep them off balance with not just going with the leg lift every time, doing a silent count and all that. So I would definitely, if you're interested in learning a lot more and getting actual film analysis, that's a good segment to check out.
Yep. All right. Next one here is the clap. Okay. And the clap is simple. And this is something that we've been researching a ton too. I know Ryan's had experience with it in the offense he played with. It's becoming more and more prolific, so to say, in both the high school and the college game. And the more I'm studying it, the more I'm falling in love with it. And I'll let you speak on a little bit more because I know you've been involved in offense that has the clap and that utilizes the clap. And there's different ways you can clap.
Right.
But let's just talk about the rhythmic part of it, the delayed or on the center.
So with the rhythmic one, this is basically where the center is. Different teams do different ways, but the way that we did it was with a rhythmic clap. So the quarterback will clap, and immediately after it'll be clap, go, and then the center snaps the ball back to the quarterback right away, as opposed to being having that delayed call. So it's really a good way of getting in that rhythm and having everyone be on the same page. We talked about with the verbal cadence of having that continuity, of having that consistency of, all right, we know the ball is going to be snapped in this time period, as opposed to having it be like in the delayed sense, where a lot of teams will also do, where the quarterback claps and then the center is basically just saying to the center, all right, I'm ready for the ball now, make your checks. And then within like the next second or two, snap, say go, and then snap the ball. So a good example of that was we did the rhythmic clap, which was based off of the OSU offense when Tom Herman was there. When Tom Herman went down to Houston, he transitioned to what he preferred when he was the head coach there, and he did the delayed snap. Yep. And then also that delayed snap can be beneficial, just depends on how you install it and what your preferences are. I think it's just more of a preference thing, if anything.
Yeah, and there's different, I want you to talk a little bit more about the center go call in a second, but we talk about rhythmic, it's just one clap and you can get the ball, or if you need the ball right now, it's as easy as doing that as well. What we talked about with the leg lift or a silent count, where the guard's tapping the center saying, hey, hurry up, snap the ball. But the quarterback can just do it by simply adding 2 more claps. Bam, bam, bam. That's it. Hey, give me the ball. We're down to 5. Or when the referee raises his hand, like, hey, we got to get this thing going right now.
And we would use that too with the if like I said, with the whole leg lift, with the guard putting his hand out in front and like waving it, using that indicator, whether it be, all right, we're doing a jet sweep where we need the ball at a certain time. It's not okay, we have the jet motion. Oh crap! Now he's past the quarterback, and the center had the delayed mindset in his mind, where now the whole play is screwed up. Or if it's getting down late in the play clock and the quarterback, there's 2 seconds left. All right, I need the ball right now. In the center, it's like, all right, now let's get the play going, as opposed to go, and then it's like, all right, now everything's happening like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point too about with the running jet sweeps or any timing plays where maybe you have just a clap and that tells the center, hey, I'm ready to go whenever you're go, snap it. But hey, we're on jet sweep now where we need that timing to hit perfectly. Now we're on 1, 2, 3 and we're gonna go.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so second thing here, talk a little bit about the center go call, because when we talk about, all right, hey, I clap once, that means I'm good to go. The center can also, I know you mentioned it briefly too, talk about the center saying go, and he's ready. He can make his own cadence for the lineman to go.
Yeah. So how we would do it, it was based off the rhythmic one where it was right away. The center would say go. It's just a way for everyone to be on the same page, I guess. So the way that we would do it, it would be clap and right away, clap, go, and even going on two, it would still be go,
Yep,
go. And then with the delayed one, I think that just gives you the added advantage of being able to sort of undress the defense, not always have them being able to time up that snap count. But yeah, it's just more of that final indicator when the ball is going to be snapped, as opposed to just everyone listening to the quarterback. It kind of has that second level of everyone being ready and on the same page.
Yep. And then we talk about undressing the defense, right? And this is what we mentioned previously in the past. You can use that fake clap, or maybe we use one clap and means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
3 claps mean something. So we talk about undressing the defense, and this is like we talked about before. It's just a way to see what blitzes are coming, see if they're going to overload one side. Maybe they got a stunt coming in from like a heavy blitz off the edge. Talk a little bit more about fake clap and undressing the defense.
Yeah, I think that is honestly my favorite advantage of the clap, is just being able, like I said, with the whole verbal, not having to go on to you all the time. We're having that quarterback has that freedom of, instead of clap, and you got guys jumping off sides, you now have where you can just fake clap and keep that defense off balance and off rhythm, where you're not timing up the clap count. And it allows for, like we said, with the whole snapping and rolling coverages, identifying blitz where guys are trying to blitz from depth and disguise their, whether they be in the fire zone 3 or cover 0, where they're trying to stay in too high and be more base quarters team, or whatever their base defense is, trying to disguise that, as opposed to giving a good pre-snap indicator that they're blitzing. I think it's really an added advantage of doing the fake clap with that.
Yeah, and I pulled this clip here from Gruden's quarterback camp, because it's actually in, you're kind of a an affiliate of this system, so to say, where it's the Ohio State, it's with Cardell Jones, I believe. And he's talking about the clap and how they use it. So essentially he's just going to repeat everything you just said, but I wanted to pull this clip up to show, how it's going to let me play it here. There we go.
I mean, you guys, look at you.
It's just the different ways they do it here. So
like you look to the sideline, look over the snap count. It's on one.
Get an offensive line to play.
John Green, he's just talking about his fake clapping and what he does and how he brings his hands through, and then he waits to see.
Then the center will say,
and
ready,
just
say
boom,
go.
Clap. And
because they used to this.
I'm not sure if the audio's coming through here, but all he's pretty much saying is, and his, he's got these big hands where that sound is echoing throughout the room too. And I think that was one of the other things that people wonder is like, hey, is this clap? Like, can wide receivers hear this clap? And Ryan, I know we talked about this, months ago. We were talking about the clap.
So
I want you to speak a little bit on that too, because my first thoughts when I first got introduced to the clap was, hey, can everyone hear this thing? Because but then I'm like, wait, Ohio State uses it. Of course they can hear the crowd going nuts.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that I've also talked to have been like, well, what if you get into that big noise environment? It's like, yeah, if you do there's some quarterbacks that I've played with that use a very soft clap, to put it in good terms, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you really practice, a lot of the guys coming in as freshmen when we were in college, obviously a lot of teams, especially at that time, weren't really, it was more of a up and coming trend as opposed to where it's at now. Had to practice it a little bit. I feel like once you really get that clap down, it's such a loud noise that I've never had an issue. And I mean, even though when I was playing, it was Division III ball, you still get some of these top rivalry games where you're getting 10,000 fans in a crowd in a confined area. It's hard to hear. Crowds going crazy, and there's a lot of noise going on. And I've never had an issue with it. And then also guys that I've talked to that have worked with teams like Ohio State and teams that have played in a bigger environment like that, where you're playing in front of 70 to 100,000 people with that crowd noise. It can be an issue, I guess, if you have a quarterback that doesn't have a good clap, I guess would be a good term for it. But I've never consistently seen across the board where that's been an issue for any one program.
Yep. All right. All right, next one here. So we talk about silent or quick counts, and I think as far as a lot of teams use this for short yardage play, or maybe they're catching a defense in a quick scramble and they got 12, 13 guys on the field. They want to snap the ball quick. We see a lot with simply just tapping the center's butt. I know teams who put the hands on the center and then they'll tap his inner thigh or whatever it may be, saying, hey, we want this ball as quick as we possibly can get it.
Yeah, both of those are obviously effective. Like I said, with the Rams are a great team to watch. They do a really good job. There's that detail episode, and also if you can get your hands on some of the all 22 film that's available out there of the Rams, I think they're a really great team to watch when you're looking at how they use the leg lift and also the silent, just straight up silent cadence, not even using a leg lift or hand motion, the way that Goff does that with the center Sullivan. With the butt tap, and then also having that ability to not only just have the butt tap, because I mean, even though it is discreet, some teams might be able to pick up on it if they can game plan that way. It's like, oh, okay, whenever they go under center here and there, watch out for the butt tap. But even then, they'll use just the straight get up the line within 2 to 3 seconds of the line getting set. The center is basically on him, but they're trying to get the ball off as quickly as possible. And the way that they incorporate that into their offense with the leg lift, I think can be really dangerous for any team that's looking to use that in up-tempo situations especially.
Yeah, and if teams want to use the butt tap with the center head movement as well, we see that a lot, especially in the NFL, where they'll hit the center's butt and then he'll look between his legs and look up. And it's just another way to undress the defense to what's coming, right? So you hit the butt once, okay, he looks down, looks up, undress it, okay, we hit the butt again, and now we're live, right? So, and the Rams do a really good job of doing that, where they're undressing the defense by not using any verbal cadence whatsoever.
Right.
It's all just between the quarterback and the center, and then the wide receivers are already looking in, the running backs looking in, like everyone's already looking into what's happening. So you don't necessarily need a cadence. And the tackles are reacting off movement anyways, right? So it's really just the guard and the center that need to be able to be on the same page for when that ball is snapped.
Yeah, I think that's just the testament to it doesn't really matter exactly how you do it, it's just whether you do it with consistency and doing it on the same page and doing it at a high level is at the end of the day what's most important. And like we talked about at the beginning, just finding whatever works for you and what works for your vision and whatever works for the players that you have and whatever you feel is best and putting your own spin on it. There's no one perfect way to do it. It's just doing it at a high level and doing it with consistency and attention to detail is really what at the end of the day comes down to.
Yeah. And then last thing here, we just want to know, if people are in the chat right now, what cadence do you use? And like I said, I'm a huge fan of the clap and the huge fan of just undressing the defense and seeing what's coming at you, because if you know what's coming at you, you can adjust to it, whether it be at the line of scrimmage and that's why I think you see these teams that are moving so fast nowadays, especially at the college level. You see these Baylors, these Ohio States, they're scoring 60 points a game because they're moving so fast, they're undressing the defense, and then they're putting the odds in their favor as opposed to letting the defense dictate what they do. And I think that's where it's all from the cadence too, right? You're able to undress the defense from the cadence by saying a word or a leg lift or a tap and undress what they're doing and put yourself in the best position possible. And Ryan, to your point, we gave a presentation on rolling coverages, right? What better way to undress a rolling coverage and get a quarterback? Okay, they're in a 2-high look and now they're rolling to a 1-high shell. Okay, I know exactly what they're in now because the corners are playing 7 yards off. They're high. They play cover 3 a high percentage of the time. Now I know they're rolling to their cover 3. And it just helps quarterbacks, whether you're young, older, it doesn't matter. And it's all from a cadence, right? It's all from saying 3, 4, or no words before the cadence to understand what the defense is giving you.
Yeah, I think, like you said, just having that ability to undress the defense, regardless of what cadence you choose to use, as long as you're doing it in a way that's putting yourself in an advantage, like you said, with the Baylors and teams like that. Baylor obviously stands out to mind where they're going at such a fast tempo. Oregon, when Chip Kelly was there, really a team that uses that procedure and that cadence and that tempo to their advantage and the ability to undress the defense with it, get them into their base looks, whether it be with tempo, be with cadence, however you're going to do it. It's all pairing all those things together to have the best possible outcome for your team, I think is what at the end of the day is what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that especially just being able to score as fast as you possibly can, right? As many points as you possibly can. And just having a cadence that's, at the end of the day, it's communication, right? we can sit here and say you could do the leg lift, you can do this, but if your team isn't communicating and your line isn't communicating with each other and there's confusion,
Absolutely.
you need to go back to one cadence and just roll from there.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words, Ryan, before we wrap up here?
Now just once again, just touching on that point that we just emphasized, it doesn't matter what cadence you choose to use, as long as you can use 5 different cadences, you can do one, as long as you're doing them at a high level. Don't do 7 different cadences if your team can't conceptualize one. Build off of that base cadence and install that into your first week of your install plan, and then kind of build off it from there once you master that initial cadence and have the ability to communicate. Because like we talked about, communication is key. If you can't communicate, then the rest of the play you're doomed from the beginning. So just building off of that initial base cadence and really mastering it and doing it at a high level, and then expanding off of that is the biggest key takeaway from this whole presentation. And obviously you can use the 4 or 5 different cadences that we have talked about today. There's plenty of different ways you can adapt them to your own offense, and just doing it at a high level and mastering that skill is just what's important at the end of the day.
Yep. Well said. All right. Well, if there's any questions on the presentation here, feel free to message myself or Coach Ryan Swingle at Coach_Swingle, and you can message me at Chris Victory. That's it for this week. We will be back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. Big shout out to our sponsor, Team Builder, as well. Go check those guys out using the promo code Victory. So, Coach Swingle, thank you again, and we'll be back next week.